Hi, welcome to another episode of BNU Noisemakers, and today I am joined by Emmy and BAFTA nominated re-recording mixer Mark Timms.
Hello.
Hi Mark, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Great to be here.
Great.
Always brings back good memories. Thanks for having me.
What course did you do at Bucks?
It was audio and music production. I was here 2013, graduated 2016.
Cool. You've done a lot of stuff since then in the film world.
Yes, kept busy. So after I left here, originally I started in sort of location recording. Did a bit of work on advertisements, and then did a bit of work at the BBC as a sort of sound assistant / boom operator on a daytime show called Doctors, which was good fun. Learnt a lot there, but I sort of knew I wanted to get into post-production, so I did some work experience at a place called Delane Lee, which is a studio in London owned by Warner Brothers, and after that got a job as a runner there and sort of worked my way up into sort of technical side of things, assisting, and then I sort of worked at a few places since, and now I'm a re-recording mixer at Jumbuck Post Production, which is an audio focused facility in London, where we do TV and film work. Most of my work's sort of been in TV, but done a few films sort of here and there as well, and yes, I've been sort of in the industry for about 10 years now. And yeah, it's been good fun, and yeah, I've been quite lucky. Had some really great opportunities. So
you're back in Studio One in Wickham?
Yeah, spent a lot of time in here back in the day.
Yeah. What do you remember sort of about the course and the things you did?
It was a good variety of things. So I think I was mostly interested in music at the time, which I think a lot of people aren't really aware of the film side of things when you sort of school and college years and things like that. But the course here offered a good sort of mix of things. There was a live sound module, there would be sort of audio theory modules, studio-based modules where we'd be in here and the other studios, and then one module a year would be the sound for vision module, which was all film-based. So I liked that would give me a good sort of breadth of opportunities to try different things, and it was all really good, but I just particularly found myself enjoying the film work. So that's sort of, over the years I sort of realised that's what I wanted to pursue post-graduation.
Was there any project you did at university that made you think about that, or was it just like a natural?
I think it was multiple projects, but I think the way the uni sort of handled it was sort of what encouraged me to do it, and the thing that sort of sold it to me when we came here for the open days and things was that you'd actually be paired with film students, who are they're studying and learning directing and camera work and all those kind of things. There'd be students on visual effects courses who would get involved as well, and you'd be put with them and say, look, they're going to have a film that they're trying to make, short film, and you've just got to provide all the audio work that's required for that. So I think that sort of sense of collaborating with the other students and not just sort of doing it just with audio people, and actually learning what people who want to direct and write and what they're like and how to kind of deliver what they want to achieve for their vision in making these films was all just what really interested me. I love that kind of collaborative aspect of it, being in a room working with people, different creatives, not necessarily sort of just audio people, and trying to sort of all come together to deliver a good final product, and just that kind of workflow and working with people like that I just really enjoyed, and I sort of wanted to pursue that and carry on in that vein.
Yeah. So there's modules that did it here for you, but were you working on anything while you were a student? Did you?
Yeah, in my third year, I sort of realised, I wanted to sort of do everything I could while I was at uni, so that I had some experience some actual world experience to kind of take me forward. And the great thing about being at the uni was we had access to kit, so I could book out particularly location recording kit, sound devices and mics, and I sort of kept my ear to the ground just for anyone who needed anything. And there were some film students who were recording an orchestra, the New Mozart Orchestra, I think they're called.
No way.
Who
I recorded them.
Oh, great!
Last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The new atrium thing.
Yeah, great, amazing. Yeah.
Great.
So they wanted some promotional material basically. So we went and attended various different performances that they did. Some schools. I think the biggest one was at the Royal Grammar School, where some other audio students from our course got involved as well. So record the orchestra, but also go and speak to different audience members and get their take on the performances and things, so that they could use that on YouTube and things to promote themselves. So that was really fun. Just sort of like, everything, doing everything on the day, the kind of pressure of trying to get everything right while, following the camera team around and things. That was really fun. And then the post process of cleaning that up and things. Yeah, so I tried to sort of get in and do as much as I could. Anything that there was an opportunity to do, I'd go in and chase down. So Stephen Partridge, who was here at the time, knew that I was sort of doing these kind of work, and then he had someone contact him saying they needed a sound assistant on a job, which was an advert shoot up in Blackpool, and he just put my name forward basically. So I got sort of a message from him saying if I wanted to do it, and then that sort of led to my first proper gig, and then that led to further work. So it all kind of, all of that kind of experience really helped me to kind of get my first opportunities.
I've been talking to a few people recently about university experiences, and the pattern that I've noticed is that, yes, come to lectures and learn lots of stuff and spend time here, but saying yes to the opportunities outside of the university sort of curriculum is like key. Yeah.
I think the way to sort of look at it is when you're at uni, is to sort of start thinking of that as the beginning of your career. Don't think I'll do my 3 years and then I'll sort of think about work and what I'm going to do. Because at university you still have a sort of safety net around you. You have loans and things to sort of keep you going, and you've got access to equipment and gear that you would otherwise not have access to, and so make use of all of that. And we had to spend loads of time in the studios just doing whatever I could and learning whatever I could, taking out the kit to use for working with other students, but also for these actual kind of proper gigs as well. So I think you really should, once you're at uni, think, okay, I've got access to all this equipment that I can use, these studios I can use. If you know bands and things like that, say I've got access to these amazing studios, let's just get in and record, make things. Even if nothing sort of really comes of it, you've got all of that work that you can show to people, and also a lot of learning what to do in the professional world is making lots of mistakes. And if you can make all those mistakes at uni, then you're so far ahead of other people. You might look back and go, well, those mixes I did for that band at uni were terrible, but you would have learned lots in the process. So better to do that than when you're out in the industry. You don't want to make those mistakes there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we fast forward to the big career highlights of yours, then this nominations of BAFTAs and Emmys and things. Yeah. So that was the True Detective one. And what did you do on that one?
So I was re-recording mixer on that one. So about 2020, so it was just before COVID, I started working with a mixer called Howard Bargroff, who sort of is a multi-award winning and nominated re-recording mixer who's done Sherlock, and he's done all Alex Garland's films, done all this amazing work. And I was I hadn't met him before, but I was aware of his reputation. And so I sort of just heard through the grapevine that he was looking for an assistant. So I just got in touch with him basically and was like, I'd love the opportunity to work with you. And so I started out for him as an assistant, which meant sort of, keeping track of media that was coming in. So he'd get deliveries of dialogue edits and effects edits and music from all these different places, and all that had to be correctly organised and delivered and set out, laying out sessions for him. And then once mixes were complete, delivering those in the proper formats to BBC or ITV or HBO or whoever the project was for, which involves a lot of work in sort of doing these deliveries so that it can be properly applied to the final product that goes on screen. And various other things, technical support and stuff. So I did that for a few years, and all the while I'd steadily get little bits of experience in mixing with him. He'd ask me to mix some Foley updates in for him, or do a first pass on some music if he was tight on time on a mix that he was doing. And then eventually that evolved into me taking on a full-time mixing position. And in film and TV you have what's called a pre-mix and a final mix. So a pre-mix is when the mixer usually works on their own, and that's doing a sort of more technical pass where you're sort of getting everything into good shape. So you start with dialogues, add in effects and Foley, and then finally music. And you're basically sort of creating the first pass of the show or the film before you show it to clients. And then in what we call the final mix is when you're in with the clients, you're playing it to them, they're giving their notes, and then you're working together to create the final product. But when you're with clients and spending a lot of money on studios and things, you don't want to be doing sort of cleaning up dialogues or editing things, so you sort of get a lot of that busy work out of the way in the pre-mix, and then the final mix you're doing the more creative fun stuff. So what I would do was do that pre-mix for him, get everything up to a certain level so that he could walk in, sit with the clients, play it to them and go, okay, let's sort of get into it. So it was a lot of pressure because particularly once we got into it, he might not have even listened to the mix before he was playing it with a director sat behind him. So if I missed anything or done anything wrong, then it sort of looks bad on him. So it's a lot of pressure to get it right and get it to the level that he expects and that our clients would expect, and prepare everything in a way that you could creatively shape things. So it was really good fun, and it was a really, I'd be stressing a lot about it in the early days, trying to make sure everything is right and as perfect as can be. But he was also very good at steering me where I did things wrong, or if something wasn't quite to what he liked, he taught me through it. So it was a really great opportunity, and I'd be working on the shows that he was doing, so that was big time work really, major shows for HBO and Netflix and things like that. And True Detective was kind of like a real sort of turning point, because obviously it's the biggest show that I had got to work on, and I'd only been sort of full-time mixing for I think a year and a half or something like that. So I was really nervous about delivering to that level of 6 episodes, and it was almost like 6 feature films in terms of the amount of work that was going into them, because there was so much music, so much sound design. It was a level above things I'd done before. But not only that, because of the way the sort of schedules worked, is Howard would be getting pulled onto other jobs sort of later down the line, so I'd actually be going in and spending the time with the clients as well, which I'd done sort of little bits and pieces for, but this was the first time I'd really sort of be spending a lot of time in the mix room with all the clients there. And because of the show that it was, we had sometimes I think 13, 14 people in the room, and they're all watching the back of my head saying, we want it to do this or we want it to do that, and then everyone's sitting there and they're all waiting for you to do it and go, is this one? And you hope that you've got it right and you've delivered. So it was high pressure, but I really learnt a lot. And the sound editors and sound supervisors that we were working with, they were also really high level people who had tons of experience. So it was great to learn from them as well as Howard, and really see what goes into making these really kind of high level shows. And because of the amount of time that I was working on it, I felt like a nice sense of ownership on it as well. Like, when you're working for someone, it's amazing because you've got that sort of buffer to learn and things, but you want to feel like you've contributed. When you hear it, you want to go, oh, I've done that scene, or things like that. So that was a real, spending that time with the clients really gave me that sort of feeling of like, oh, this episode I really had a hand in doing this or doing that. So it really felt good, and it really felt like I was really involved and real part of the team. Sometimes when you're sort of just doing the pre-mix work, no one really sees you because you're not doing the client sort of facing work. So sometimes you don't feel like as included in the grander team, even though you are, and you are doing a certain amount of work. So it was a really fun job, and I learned a lot, and it was really sort of a really great team. So it was really great fun. And then it was incredibly sort of the following year when sort of Emmys and BAFTAs came out and we were getting nominated. It was like crazy to sort of see your name in that kind of that kind of awards. Is like crazy. You sort of don't expect that, and I'm particularly lucky in that it was so early in my career that I'd managed to get onto this job and get that nomination. And then for the Emmys, they even flew us out to LA and things like that, so it was the full kind of experience. So which my wife very much enjoyed because she got to come as well and go to the awards and stuff like that. So but the sort of greater thing is that it just really helps me for the future for my career, and that it's you can say you've worked on all these shows, but if people haven't seen them, then they don't necessarily know what you've done. But if you say you've got this nomination and that nomination, then people sort of immediately go, well, hopefully he kind of knows what he's doing if he's gotten these nominations. So
did it make an immediate change to the calls that you were getting compared to what you were before, or was it slow and gradual?
I think it sort of led to where I am now, because now I'm at a new company, and I've taken a sort of step in my career, and I think those nominations really helped with that. Howard, when he was talking to me about it, because he'd been through it himself, many times, he said that it sort of takes some time for those sorts of things to really sort of have an impact, but gradually more and more people hear about it, and it's just something that I think our industry is very much a sort of who industry, for better or worse. A lot of things do just come from people you've worked with before, relationships you have, and I think just the kind of tag of nominations just means that you might come up in newer conversations that you might not have come up in before. I think someone might say, oh, I've watched that True Detective show, I want the people who did the sound for that show, or when they've not been nominated, so it's sort of, those are the kind of ways that it leads to more and more work. But over the last year, or in September last year, I've actually moved to a new company, Jumbuck Post-Production, and I think the awards were definitely a part of getting me in that kind of conversation for when they were looking for a new mixer, because it means that they can then sell me, to new prospective clients, and show my CV to clients that they worked with before, but they might not know me, and then that just immediately sort of gives a sort of legitimacy to what I've done. So now where I'm working, I'm now taking on my own jobs and working with my own clients, and sort of doing the whole show myself now, which is really exciting. Even though I'm not working on those huge HBO shows at the moment, I'm doing shows with my clients, my relationships, and getting that sense of ownership of it sort of being my project, which is what I really enjoy. I really want to be as involved and working with the creatives on the project as possible, and I really enjoy that. So and I'm still early days in my career, so now it's like I can sort of start to build my relationships and hopefully work up to those things, in 10, 15 years time or something like that.
So you graduated 10 years ago, is that right?
Yes, 2016.
And then the the nominations started 6 or 7 years after you graduated.
What would have been 2 years? 7, 8 years maybe afterwards.
It's a short period of time, isn't it, from going to graduation?
I think I was never sort of content to sort of just stay anywhere unless I had a reason to. So when I was at Delane Lee, I was doing mix teching, which is when you're sort of a technical support role on the projects, the mixes that are happening, because on big films they can have quite sort of major sort of technical setups, and I did that for about a year and a half, and sort of there wasn't any progression to go further in sort of creative roles there. I could sort of continue to be a better mix tech, but I was like, I would rather go somewhere else that has more progression. And that's just that's not necessarily sort of a detriment to Delane Lee when I was there. That's just the way the company's set up, and they're working on these massive projects, and they had a lot of creatives who had been in house for a long time and were winning Emmys and Oscars and all these kind of things. So they're sort of institutions part of the company. So it's just like sometimes in these places you have to wait for someone to leave or to retire or something before an opportunity comes up. I was sort of like, I'm not gonna get into the roles that I want to get to here necessarily, so I looked elsewhere, and I went to a place called Halo Post-Production, which is sadly now gone under, doesn't exist anymore, but they were a post house that did video and audio, mostly for sort of TV work, particularly documentary, and sort of light entertainment TV. So I'd be working on things like Coach Trip, or I'm trying to think what else, all sorts of sort of stuff you get on Channel 4 and those kind of things. But because of those kind of projects, you got an opportunity to get hands on and do a little bit of mixing or learn some sound editorial and things like that, which was really, really good. And I really got to sort of learn more about the creative side, not just the sort of technical side of things. And then when I saw that Howard was looking for someone, it was like, I know that he does great work, and I've heard that he was good to work with. So it was sort of like, then I'd only been at Halo a year when I then jumped to go and work with Howard, and then just put in as much work as I could, and you know, always kind of, again, always putting my hand up for things, you know. If he said I need someone to do this or that, then even if I sort of wasn't fully confident, you know, I'd ask questions if I wasn't sure of anything, but I'd never sort of like shy away from things. And I think that's what sort of led to me talking to clients all the time, you know. Even I wasn't sort of saying, oh well, because I'm an assistant I shouldn't be talking to people. I was never afraid of talking to clients and things like that. So clients would then know who I was, which made it easier for them to trust that I would be mixing their show and things like that. So I really just have been, you know, I've always been pushing and always working my hardest and putting the time in, and people really see that and respect that when they see that you're going the extra mile on things. You know, you don't, you know, you make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes, but you always rectify them and learn from things. So then you grow and people see that you can then, you know, if people see that you're making the same mistakes all the time, then they lose trust in you, and trust is kind of the biggest thing. Howard hadn't necessarily heard me mix an entire episode of a show when he, you know, first asked me to do something, but he trusted that I would have put the time and the work into knowing how to do it. So you know, he was then willing to give me those opportunities. So I think it's all about how you carry yourself and the effort that you put in, your work ethic and how you approach things, more so than, you know, even like how good you are on Pro Tools. You know, those sorts of things are a given, you know, and also those can be learnt a lot. You know, everyone can pick up those skills along the way, and people are always very open in giving advice, I've found, if you ask for it. So it's all about, you know, you've got to chase things down and you've got to be proactive, and then you've got to put the work in, and then that sort of eventually will pay dividends, which I've found for me it certainly has over the years.
Sure. I've got coming back to university for a minute, I've got you know, it's the end of the term now, end of the academic year. I've got some graduates coming out. You know, what sort of advice would you be giving 10 years into your sort of freelance career and working in the audio industry? You know, what would be your advice to graduates about to get into the real world now?
I think just you've really got to hunt opportunities down. You know, there's so many people, whether it's music or film or gaming, whatever it is you want to get into, it's a competitive, you know, they're competitive industries. And if you think about your graduating, there's however many universities where they've also got people graduating at the same time. One of the great things about Bucks in particular is that you're so close to London. You know, it's one of the reasons that I chose to come here, you know, because that's where so many opportunities are. My advice would be to just, you know, if whatever it is, whichever sort of path you want to go down, is find the names of facilities that do those things, you know, and send them CVs, you know, show up and, you know, say hello and, you know, make yourself known and ask if you can do experience at places. And all while you're doing that, you know, sharpen your skills as well. You know, it's while you've got time, while you've got, you know, opportunity to kind of put time into things, you know, once you sort of get into the real world and, you know, having a full-time job and having to pay rent and all those kind of things, it gets harder and harder and harder as time goes on to make time for all these things. So, you know, throw yourself into things, you know, don't say, oh, I'll take the summer off and, you know, then I'll think about things, you know, because all the while you're doing that, other people are going and taking these opportunities. So if you want to get into film, you know, find the names of facilities that do the kind of work that you like, and, you know, get in touch with them, send CVs, say, can I come in for a day, can I come in for a week, just to shadow and learn things, and be prepared to, you know, graft and just, you know, do whatever is necessary. You know, I was a runner for about a year before I was doing anything sort of technical, and that's the way a lot of people, you know, start and come up. But, you know, while you're running, you get to meet people. You know, again, if people see that you work hard and you do well as a runner and you can be trusted and relied upon, then they'll go, oh, okay, we've got an opening for a technical position or an assistant position, let's give that person an opportunity, because they're always there, they're always the first one in, they're always, you know, showing the face, they're always asking questions. You know, whenever you get to be around someone who is doing what you want to do, ask them questions, you know, show interest, you know, I've come back here a couple of times, and I've spoken to people from NFTS and things like that, and there are plenty of them who don't ask questions, don't say anything, and then you never remember those people, but you remember that person who put their hand up, asked lots of questions, emailed you afterwards and kept in touch. And then, when that person then says, "Oh, can I come in and do some experience?" You say, "Yeah, come in and just watch me mix for a day or do this and that." And then that leads to then more opportunities. So I actually, the job I got at Delane Lee was because Al Green, who was our film lecturer, he took us on a trip to Delane Lee. So we had a day, we went into London, we did something else as well. I think it was like a Dolby Atmos presentation, because Atmos was quite new at the time. And then we went to this studio, Delane Lee, and we went into their main mix stage, which is massive, cinema size Atmos mix theatre. And they played us a trailer of Gravity, in full Atmos. With it was insane, blew my mind. I'd not seen the film, but it was like, I wish I'd actually gone and seen that at the cinema, because I just hadn't got around to it. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be making stuff like that. So I said to Mike King, who was the I think he was head of technical operations at the time, but now he's the sort of main boss there. I just said, how do I get a job here? And he gave me his email, and I emailed him a couple of times, and then I did basically like a week's free running work there, just as an experience to learn there. And I just worked making coffees, asking questions, talking to people. And I think it was about 3 or 4 months after that they had a runner position open up. So they said, because they'd already seen me work by that point, it's so much better than an interview for them, because they know how someone actually works. They were like, come in and we'll interview for it. And then I got my first job, and that just led to everything else. So you never know where things are going to come from. Similarly, the jobs that I got that came through Stephen Partridge, like I hadn't even really spoken to Stephen Partridge a lot, but he had heard that I'd been doing this work, so then he put my name forward to go and do some actual work out in the world. So you never know where opportunities are going to come from. So you've always got to kind of put your best foot forward, no matter what it is you're doing. Yeah.
So equally, people are finishing A levels now, thinking about going to do a degree in something or other. What would sort of your advice be on those guys and girls that are thinking about it?
Follow your passion. Like, I sort of didn't really know. I didn't know, way ahead. I'm never really known like 5-10 years ahead what I want to do, sort of thing. It's always been, okay, what do I want to follow next? I think at college I did like ancient history, drama, and music technology. So it was quite a variety of stuff, but it was like, these are the things I'm interested in. And then music tech was what interested me most. So just, follow what your passion is. But I think you've really got to avoid thinking of uni as just sort of a continuation of school and college, and and it's easy obviously to fall into the trap of partying and having a good time, which you can do. It's great, but ultimately you're paying to be at uni. So I think some people kind of forget that. Is it like I think only it was like 2 or 3 years ago my student loans started coming down because I was only just earning enough to take over the interest. You're going to be paying for that for the rest of your life, so make the most of it. I think I see some students, even when I was at uni, it's like take it for granted that it's not like school where you've got to go and you're forced to go.
Absolutely.
You're paying to be here, so it's only you that loses out if you don't make the most of it. So go to all the lectures, go to all the seminars or workshops or wherever it is that you're doing, because you never know. Some might not be helpful. I think we had to do some like academic work. We had to write 500 words on like what a compressor does or something like that. And I didn't enjoy that, but it's just all feeds into your learning, and you never know when you might actually learn something new from something. And to get properly skilled at doing something, it takes hours and hours and hours, because one day you pick up one thing and you go, oh, I'll remember that, and then another day you pick it. And even today, I'll talk to other mixers and they say, oh, this is how I do X, Y, or Z, and I go, oh, actually, that's an interesting approach. So then that's another little thing that goes into my sort of toolbox of how I approach mixing a full show or film. And it's the same at uni. You never know what might spark an interest in something that you want to do. You never know what will actually go, oh, I never knew that before, and now suddenly I understand more about how to mix or to work on a film or whatever it is. So just throw yourself into it, and again, say yes to everything. If a lecturer says, oh, I know someone who needs help but needs an extra pair of hands on a film set this weekend or something like that, go and do it and put your hand up, and because even if it's not necessarily the thing you want to pursue fully, you're learning from all areas, and once you sort of get out into the world, I'd say it's easier to sort of move between disciplines than to sort of try and break into the industry. When I was working on set, I knew that's not what I wanted to do full time. I wanted to be in post-production, but I was just accruing all this experience which then I could bring forward to when I was interviewing to work in post-production.
So apart from writing terrible essays about compressors, what sort of things were you doing in your coursework and practical stuff here?
So on the live sound, it was always fun because we'd basically rig up the SU every lecture, and then people would jump on instruments, and then we'd sort of mix that and see how it all worked in a live environment. So that was very practical and hands-on, which was lots of fun. Some of the audio theory stuff was actually really interesting because you'd learn sort of some things that you don't really sort of think about for a long time, but now and now sort of coming back to me, just learning about things like phasing and stuff like that you sort of don't really think about for a while, but now when I'm working with dialogue, you're working with boom mics and clip mics, and you've got to make sure that they're phase aligned and things like that, so you get the best sound. So there's all sorts of things which then sort of come back and spark memories and go, oh, actually I did that at uni, and it's in there somewhere, and then when you actually practically sort of need that knowledge, it does sort of come back. And then in the third year, we were tasked with sort of finding an artist or a band and sort of going sort of almost through the full process of producing them, recording either a song or an EP or an album or something with them, and then we were doing, I think, music business at the time, so we'd talk about how we'd market that and do all that. So that was really good because that was a real kind of practical approach to how things work in the industry. When you're working with a real band, they're not necessarily going to always listen to you, so you've got to take that into consideration. We worked with sort of like this kind of punky kind of rock band who are basically, they're all teenagers basically, so and they wanted to do things a certain way, and they liked this kind of like rough kind of sound, and you're like you're trying to think, I want this crisp kind of nicely produced kind of sort of sound, but then when they say, oh no, we want this or that, or distort my vocals, and you realize that when you're working with real artists, you can't just turn around and say, well, no, that's not how I want to do it. You have to deliver what they want, but you kind of have to be able to elevate it or show them why something might not work. It's all about that collaborative process, and that was really fun sitting in it. I think we were doing some of the mixing in the small room just over there, Studio 3. And because we recorded everything live in these two studios, so we recorded the band fully live, and then we did some overdubs and stuff later on.
It's amazing that you remember that.
I mean, it was a really really great fun process. They were really talented group. I don't think they're around anymore, but they were really good, but they were like, I think they were all like 18, 19 or something like that, but they were all, just wanted to smoke weed and play music, and that's all they wanted to do. So it was quite interesting getting them into a studio and trying to sort of corral them, trying to sort of go, oh, let's do a take, but let's do this differently or that, when they just kind of want to chat and things like that. Learning how to work with creative people who are not necessarily gonna sort of like just stick to your schedule of what you're doing, or which is so much of what working in film or TV or music or whatever it is people who are kind of creative and don't necessarily understand the technical process of doing things, because that's what you're there to do, is to deliver what they're imagining in their heads, and provide your own ideas and things as well. So
your course was very varied, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a good
variety. Do you think that's
a
positive thing for
totally
you?
Because at the time when I was sort of coming into looking at universities, things like that, I sort of knew that I liked working in the studio, recording. I recorded me and my mates and stuff like that, and I played a bit of guitar and stuff like that at the time as well. So I knew I liked music technology. I knew I didn't want to sort of do music theory and be a musician and things like that. I knew I liked the kind of studio environment, and that sort of process of like putting like a record together, but I didn't really know how to translate that into a real career. I knew that the music industry is kind of cutthroat and difficult to get into, and I had no idea of what routes you'd take to actually even get into it. So the variety that was on offer, it was like, I'd never actually thought about live sound, and I'd never actually thought about sound for film. Was like, I can explore all of these sort of aspects of audio technology and production, and I'm not just kind of limiting myself to recording music in a studio. So I thought I'd got a good breadth of knowledge, and I think because when you're going to uni, some people are razor focused, they know what they want to do, but I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do as a full-time career. And then the sound for film module, making short films with people, being on set and doing the recordings, and then being in the studio and doing the post-production with people, I just found I really enjoyed it. And I kind of enjoyed that there were sort of different elements to consider, which was different to working in music, when you've got to think about dialogue, think about sound effects, and then also think about music and how that's shaped. I just really enjoyed that whole process. So then I sort of discovered that film was what I was interested in. So then I knew to pursue that.
Sometimes I find that the people that think they know exactly what they want to do when they start a degree are the ones that struggle more. Because if you're nice and wide and open with your ideas, like here's radio, here's film, TV, here's sound design, here's whatever, post-production, mixing, band stuff. If you're very wide when you get into your first year, you get those experiences, like you say, they're all very similar, aren't they, in the way it's all input and output after all. And you just end up narrowing that circle down until you're sort of really narrowed in on something for your third year or whatever.
Definitely.
Sometimes I find that those are the graduates that are most successful.
100%. Because as you say, a lot of it is all the kind of same processes, ins and outs and busing and sending audio and compressing it, but the way you use those tools is slightly different in sort of different disciplines and things like that. So even just mixing live sound as opposed to working in a studio is very different. So all the skills that you learn are all helpful in all regards, but then you never know what you might do that you go, actually I want to do more of this. And also from thinking practically, when you go to uni, you are thinking about how can I make a career out of my interests and what I love doing. And it's if that's what you're passionate about, I would say I want to mix pop artists or whatever. If that's what you're really passionate about and that's what you want to do, then great. But it's good to know that there's other things out there that you can go and work in outside broadcast, or go and work in live sound, because also working in live sound, you learn to work with artists, and then that can help you lead to working into studio work as well. So if you have a larger sort of breadth of knowledge, and you see an opportunity that comes up, then you can maybe take that. If you say, actually I never did live sound, so I couldn't go and do this kind of concert and learn about that and then work with artists. So you never know where things will take you. So I think you shouldn't close yourself off to anything else, particularly at that stage. You should be open to all different kind of disciplines.
We're very lucky to have fantastic facilities at the university. But we remain a village size university, don't we, really? A few thousand people, whereas just down the road, Hertfordshire, sort of 50,000 people. And I remember doing my master's degree at London College of Music, and there was 200 of us lined up.
Oh, right,
for a 1 hour seminar on research methods. You were lucky if they saw you put your hand up and ask a question, or email you back. Your class size is small here, isn't it? I mean, that must be an advantage as well.
Totally, I felt like I had a good relationship with all the lecturers, which was really, really good. They all knew who you were, and it just made it that much easier if you had questions to go and ask for things. And also just, that meant that I think the lecturers all knew who were the people who put in the effort and who were good. Your hard work didn't go unnoticed, I don't think. I think, I could feel from the lecturers that my work was appreciated and stuff. And particularly Al, he saw that I was interested in the film sound side of things, and sort of, so we talked more about it, and I learned from him more and things like that. So definitely that, and that was something that sort of appealed to me, even just when I was like looking, because I looked at Bournemouth and UE and all sorts of places. but we came for the open day here, and I think it was Warren who was talking to us at the time, saying we do the session in here, so I'll show you things on the desk and in Pro Tools, and then you'll jump on and do it. So it's not just you're not just in a lecture hall being shown screenshots of stuff, and so and all our live sound lectures being in the SU, which you couldn't do if you had 200 people or whatever to do it, so that was a real benefit. It meant that you were always getting on the practical subjects, you're always getting practical, hands-on knowledge with things. So it was one of the things that appealed to me, was that because it sort of makes sense ultimately. You don't want to read about what an S6 does and what Pro Tools does, and that doesn't really help you.
You don't need anything. You want to just do it, don't you?
Yeah, you just want to get stuck in and make mistakes and learn how to do things. And so I think that's a real sort of benefit of the uni, and it really helped me, and it was what I really appreciated when I was here.
So we're in Studio One now, and obviously maybe 3 or 4 years ago we upgraded to Dolby Atmos.
Yes.
So you wouldn't have had Dolby Atmos when you were...
No, it was still Atmos was still very new at the time. Yeah.
And we've now got it in Studio 3 as well, so we've got two
great,
mix rooms. They sound very different from one another. But, but both are excellent in different ways.
Yeah.
Atmos is here to stay, do you think?
Oh, totally, yeah. That was actually something that really helped me when I was starting in my career, was that I was aware of what Atmos was, even though we didn't have Atmos in the studios. Al talked to us about it. We went along to a Dolby sort of seminar where they showed it off a bit. So I was aware of it and aware of the technology. And then when I was sort of starting to get into working in an actual film studio where they're mixing in Atmos, it was like, I recognise this and I understand what this does, and then I built on that knowledge. And it was actually probably one of the things that got me my job with Howard, was that he was starting to do more and more TV jobs which were requiring Atmos, and I was like, I know my way around that totally. So I could sort of just walk in and immediately help with the workflow on that. But it's totally here to stay. Basically any of the kind of streaming services now, Netflix, Apple, I'm trying to think, Disney, any of the sort of big sort of streaming platforms now, they'll require basically all their TV deliverables to be in Atmos. Any major film now will be mixed in Atmos. Obviously stereo is still king in terms of what people listen to,
but
particularly
it's generally the derivative of the
exactly
Atmos down mix, isn't it?
So
you're not doing a stereo mix.
When we're mixing TV shows, like when we did True Detective, we were mixing in Atmos the whole time, and then the stereo that you hear eventually on the final product is a fold down of that Atmos mix. So we're not doing like a separate mix. We'll listen to the stereo and then we might make changes to the Atmos mix to help with the adjustment, but basically it's a direct fold down of the Atmos mix. So it's really good to know how that works, how the fold down works, and being able to mix in Atmos is a real great advantage, because it is the industry standard in post-production, and now in music as well, with Apple particularly pushing spatial audio and things. It's out there and now in music, so
it's
really good to know.
We were working in 5.1, weren't we, when we were here, the way the room was set up, and then when we got the Atmos set up here in 1, we added a third year module.
Oh, great.
But even that's not enough, so we're bringing it into first and second year now. Even when students come in now, they're almost automatically into the Atmos
I think it's because it can be sort of quite overwhelming at first, Atmos, but I think once you sort of get your head around the idea of what like beds and objects are, then you kind of you're away really. So I think it's good to sort of almost just start with that and go, this is Atmos and this is how things work, because so many things now are just mixed in Atmos. And then if you've got a good Atmos mix, your 5.1 mix or your stereo mix, whatever, they come from that and they'll be good as well. So it's
I
really
still like
good
tape machines. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it would be nice. People ask us about that in film sometimes, if we use analog gear and things, but it's quite funny because film's so different. We're working with 600, 700 tracks of audio across dialogue and effects and music, and you're getting recuts where the whole timeline is changing, so you just couldn't possibly work with analog kit anymore, or those kind of things. So it's a very different world. Practicality is sort of a much bigger consideration. The tools and things sound great these days as well. It's great to work with a tape machine, and it's really cool to be able to do that, and the sound of them is great, but also the tools and plugins that you have now are so powerful.
Universal audio stuff so good. The music stuff
Universal audio is great.
Yeah.
There's even the DFC, which is sort of a major sort of digital console in use in film, but even that's sort of been phased out now, largely in favour of the S6. Sort of everything's in the box now, but the DFC is one of the sort of last standing proper digital consoles that actually kind of processes audio. But then I think UAD came out with the DFC channel strip, which sort of does the compression and EQ from the DFC, and that kind of converted some people over to fully in the box working, because they then had that kind of sound of the DFC there. So most kind of film and TV now is almost entirely just in Pro Tools. It used to be, and it's still I think in America they still use actual digital consoles for a lot of film mixing and things like that. But most things are just all S6 now. So
cool. And you're coming back and doing lectures now?
Yeah, I've done a couple for Al. It's been a little while actually since I've done some. I've come back 4 or 5 times or something like that over the years, which has been nice to sort of. It's nice to come back now when I'm like properly a mixer and doing things. You know, I've got sort of things I can point to. Go, I did that that you can go and watch and stuff. So, and I think that's something that I would really appreciate as a student, is seeing people who've actually come through the same place that I was at and have made successes. So I always try and come back when I can if I get asked, which is really, really nice to do.
When I was doing my audio music production, you reminded me of this. When I was doing mine 2008, 2011, Stephen Partridge hired Dean Humphreys, and he was
I think
you might have had him.
I think I had him just for a one-off.
And he was mixer for films. Done lots of stuff, and he was flying to Paris to do overdubs with Ewan McGregor on the Saturday, and then fly back on a Sunday to teach me on the Monday.
That's crazy. I think I had a lecture with him. I think he came in for a guest lecture once. I think wasn't when he was doing that. But he was really great to talk to.
It's really great to get you in. And because you did a True Detective mix for us in the session that
I ran some of the mix, which is what I really like doing, because it's such a sort of, you think you kind of know your way around Pro Tools, and then you get into working in the industry and you see the kind of signal chains and the amount of tracks and the scale of projects and things like that. It's insane. So if I come in, it's nice to show people an actual mix session and show sort of a bit of what goes into it. So you get an idea. Like you think you know your way around Pro Tools, and you think you know shortcuts and stuff like that. But when you're actually working and you've actually got clients and things like that, there's a level of speed that you have to have that you just don't get until you're really, really doing it and you've really been in the thick of it. I remember just when I came out of uni and I was first in working in a studio, and I'd see people working. I'm like, oh my god, they're so quick at just doing everything.
Shortcuts,
shortcuts and everything. Learn your shortcuts. I sort of thought, I learned a few, but I wasn't really sort of. But then you really got to learn them all, because it's really, really useful when you're under pressure, particularly when you've got people waiting for you to do things.
So you got anything cool coming up in the pipeline with your name on it?
So I just finished mixing a show called Adultery for ITV, which was written by Danny Brocklehurst, who did Brassic and Shameless, all those shows. So he wrote the show Adultery, which is starring Dominic Cooper, and it's a 6-part drama for ITV coming out sort of autumn time. And it was a really, really just really brilliant show. Sort of, I wasn't really sure about it when I heard about it, because it's essentially a story of 2 families, and the husband from one family and the wife of another family, meet and then engage in an affair, and I was sort of like, this isn't really my kind of thing, or something I'd watch. But it's so well written, and the characters in it are so sort of deep and well thought out, and the music's brilliant. Oh god, put me on the spot. I'm trying to remember names of people now, and
so it's no test at the end.
No, I know. I know. But when you talk about things, you want to bring up names of people and things like that. The music is incredible. And I can't remember his name now, but he's an ex-member of the Klaxons, did the score for it, and he was brilliant, and he came in and attended the sessions and things, and it was really great to have him on board. So the music's really great, actors are really great, and the writing's really great. So and I mixed the whole thing myself, and it's sort of one of the first projects that I'd mixed absolutely everything myself. So it was really amazing. Just really nice to sort of have that. creative control over it, and it was really good fun. So I think it's really good, and I'm looking forward to sort of seeing how it does when it comes out. So so that's the biggest one. I did Beyond Paradise, which has just recently been on BBC.
I saw your name on the list.
Yeah. So that was a really great fun show. Again, really great music in that, and really great team. So that was a real pleasure. It's a really fun show to work on, and it's just sort of, again, it's really well written. So it was really good fun to work on. What else? Sort of trying to remember what I've been working on. Doing a bit of work on Rivals, the Disney Plus show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm not sort of the main mixer on it. It's Richard Davies, who's my boss, brilliant mixer. He's been mixing it, but I've been jumping in and helping out here and there. Which is that's just a really funny show.
It's a bonkers show, isn't it?
It's insane. Yeah. I've been working on bits of it at home, and I have to kind of make sure I haven't got the windows open.
I bet.
Don't
want the mix that?
Don't want the neighbours to be hearing that next door. So I'm not sort of like the top billing on that. That's Richard's show, but I've done bits and pieces on it, and it's a really well produced show and really high quality. So it's been good fun to do bits of work on that. There's a couple of other shows coming out, but they haven't been sort of announced on release dates and things like that when they're coming out. So, but Adultery is the big one. I'm just really proud of that one. So I'm really hoping that it does well when it comes out and gets an audience. So go and watch it.
Yeah. Okay. I will.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's wonderful, Mark.
Cool.
Any last bits of advice for anyone thinking about joining audio music productions, of course? Would you recommend it? Is it something you think is good enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, it completely led to me starting my career, and I can attribute everything back to me being here. And it's funny, like the little things that have come up that have actually got me opportunities that have stemmed from what I did at uni. I did my dissertation on binaural audio, and then ended up doing a mix project in binaural audio, and because we were talking about it, and I was like, actually I did a whole dissertation on that. So it's like, okay, cool, well, you can mix this then. And so all sorts of little bits of experience and things that I did at uni have all sort of come back around and come in handy. And I can attribute so much of where I am to being at uni, genuinely. So, and I think just my advice for people is just with uni and with anything is you get out what you put into it.
Yeah, definitely.
You can't just walk out with a degree and say I'm going to get a job or whatever. No one's asked me to see my degree since I've been in the industry.
Right.
It's all about how you present yourself, the work you put in and the effort you put in. Being a nice and personable person to be around. If you've got to spend 8 hours a day in a room with no windows with other people, you want to work with people that you can get on with, and which is not to say you have to be like a social butterfly. Like you don't think that you have to be super outgoing and super kind of like crazy good at working a room or anything like that to talk to people. People recognize your skills, what you deliver, and will you listen to feedback? Will you deliver what people ask of you? Don't deliver just what you think is right. You have to work with people and deliver what they want, but give your own input. If you want to work in film, particularly, it's good to just know your stuff. Watch lots of films, pay attention to the soundtracks and what's going on with them. Directors, producers and things, they really enjoy when they talk about, they want to say, I want it to sound like Alien did, or and you understand, you can immediately go, yes, I know what you mean. So it's good to sort of have a good breadth of knowledge of different genres and different styles, and know what goes into it. So when you're talking with creative people, you can speak their language and you can understand what they're asking for. So just really got everything comes from how much effort and work you put into it, and there is a healthy bit of luck which is needed as well. But I think if you are always putting yourself out there and always talking to people, something will come your way eventually. You don't know where the opportunities will come from, but if people know, that person works really hard and that person always shows up and that person is always asking questions, that's going to be the person that if you were doing a record and you needed help engineering it or something like that, that's the kind of person that you're going to say, do you want to come and help me out? Or You know, if someone's going out on a shoot, it's like, oh, who is that person who shows up all the time and is always reliable? You know, always returns their kit on time, doesn't damage things. You know, treats things with respect, treats people with respect. That's all where your opportunities come from. And it's funny, you know, I got asked to do a film recently, just to step in and help on a sort of temp mix, which is kind of just a rough mix to show to audiences, by some of the sound editors who were on True Detective. So, you know, 2-3 years after doing that project, when they need help, they've asked me, because they remember that I was good to work with and I get on well with them, had a good relationship with them, and I deliver, you know, when it's needed, you know, in the room and things like that. So, you know, it's funny where you never know when something's going to come along, but it all depends on how you present yourself, because the moment you sort of show up late, or you don't put in the effort, or you don't show interest, people will go, well, there'll be a next person who's better. So, you know, it's easy to kind of get sort of downtrodden and thinking about how competitive and difficult it is to get into these industries, but if you are putting the effort in, people do recognize it. So I think that's the big thing to do, is that, you know, you're paying for uni, so get your money's worth out of it. You know, use the facilities, spend all the time in the studios, you know, make whatever use of it you can, and, you know, start that from day one. Don't wait till third year, or don't wait till you're close to graduating. You know, from year one, just do whatever you can, and things will go wrong as well. Like if you do a short film or something, you know, things might go wrong. You might, you know, lose some audio or record something that sounds terrible, but you'll have learnt then, and it's better to learn it then when there's much less stakes to it, you know, when it's for a uni project or something, as opposed to when you're on a real set and doing those things. So you know, do the work and make the mistakes now. Don't do it when you're actually out there. But you will still make more mistakes when you're actually working. I've made so many mistakes over the years and gotten shouted at for various things, but, you know, it's all part of it. You learn from that. That's how people learn. So
every step's a learning experience, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Excellent.
Great.
Mark, thanks so much. It's great.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Well done. Brilliant.
Yeah.